Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Say Report. It's another banked episode, and if you couldn't guess, we're talking about everybody's favorite classic. Devin, oh man.
Heat
Today
Vision and Jack.
we decided that we wanted to focus on a little gem called Heat Vision and Jack,
I
and
like
I
that.
will,
I like that we decided. Sejohn
well,
decided, and I feel like this is my penance for suggesting Shallow Hal.
I didn't even think about that. Wow, yeah, we did that. I just wanted to. We were trying to find something for another banked episode. And, for
We
some
call
reason,
them
we couldn't come to
time
you.
capsule episodes. Stop calling them banked episodes. It feels like it's
Whatever.
cheap.
So here's one of our time capsule classics. So we always try and find something that stands a little out of our time now as it is, so that way it doesn't really age any more than it already has, right?
Which, ironically, it will be announced like tomorrow in real world time that this show is like going to finally be picked up.
Yeah, well, it actually might, and we'll talk about that. We decided to look at the quote unquote failed pilot for Heat Vision and Jack, a Ben Stiller directed piece. Dan Harmon wrote. It stars Jack Black, Owen Wilson, Christine
Luke
Taylor.
Wilson, actually.
What?
Yeah, that I had to double check, but I'm like,
as him?
I'm pretty sure Heat Vision is the voice is Luke Wilson, isn't it?
No, it's Owen Wilson. Are you
Okay.
kidding me?
Well, that's why I was surprised. I need to double check. They sound the same to me. They don't look the same, but they sound
How
the same.
they sound the same to you? Owen Wilson has the most distinctive. Hi, Devin. Hi. Like
Hello,
he's constantly talking like he's readjusting his jaw, like he's in the middle of like relocating it.
This changes this show for me completely because I'm like, good for Luke Wilson being part of this.
Wow.
I was in Idiocracy, an old school.
Was he in Idiocracy?
Yeah, he's the guy who gets frozen.
No, Luke Wilson is the one.
Yeah, Luke Wilson is who I thought it was. Oh, you were doing your own Wilson. See, they sound the same to me.
They don't sound oh my god. This is a ridiculous way to start this off.
Well, welcome to the bit, Sejohn. And welcome you, listeners, to the Say Report. Usually we do episodes that are flash in the pan, which is ironic because I'm trying to light my candle because I usually have a candle going, and it just won't take. So when we record these time capsule episodes, as Sejohn was saying, we try to focus on something that, doesn't have an expiration date or that the expiration date has already passed. And nothing is better than Heat Vision and Jack. So kudos to Sejohn for picking something that like fits the time capsule bill perfectly.
Yeah. It was created in. Oh God. Okay, here's the thing. It was created in 1999, and if you told me that this thing came out in 1992, my perception on this entire thing changed today as well, David. Because as I was doing research on it, all of this stuff came to light about it, and all of my perception of it started to warp and change to the point where I have a very important question that I need you to answer at the top of this.
Okay.
Is this real?
Yeah, it's definitely real.
Is this real? Like, is this real life? Is this a thing that they actually intended to become a show, or is this just a joke?
Well, so that's like my big question about it is, as I was watching the show today, I'm like, I do not doubt that if this show got picked up, every single episode would feature Jack giving his origin story and him relating the origin story of Heat Vision. I have no doubt in my mind.
And that kills 15 minutes for you right there.
Exactly,
So.
that's the thing. Like, and I feel like this was the whole point of it. And really what this is, first of all, if it really was made in 1999, and we have to believe that it was, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're told by Ben Stiller.
And that's what IMDb has, so that's legal right there. The internet says so.
If it were really, Jesus, my candle broke. Hold on.
This is a bad sign. Things are going all sorts wrong.
I guess I don't know what that was incredible. I really wish that I had taped that, like just a real clean break. Oh no, not clean. Broke my finger. All right, back to it. If this were made in 1999, it was made exactly 4 years too early. Because this is what Adult Swim lives and breathes on, is a show like Heat Vision and Jack. And, like, even discounting the fact that, like, Rick and Morty. Like, even discounting that, this show, watching the pilot to Heat Vision and Jack, made me miss one show in particular. And before I tell you what that show is, I'd like to ask you what you think it is.
Stroker and Hoop.
Oh, Sejohn wins the prize!
Yeah, no, definitely Stroker and Hoop.
And not just because of, like, the talking vehicle connection.
No, right.
But is 100% the coroner who goes, I just rented Time Cop. You the bad guy at Time Cop.
You're the bad guy at Time Cop.
But we are getting ahead of ourselves.
He makes a fantastic comment earlier about dehydration machines only existing in comic books and rap lyrics.
Yeah, like, he reminds me so much of the coroner from Stroker and Hoop. That, like, I was just so sad that, like, Stroker and Hoop only had those 13 amazing episodes.
Oh, perfect episodes, though. They're perfect.
Dude, the finale of Stroker and Hoop is... sorry. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're talking about a show from the future. We should be talking about Heat Vision and Jack. Heat Vision and Jack. And the fact of the matter is, Jack of all trades existed.
Yes, Jack of all trades with Chin Boy there. What's his name?
Bruce Campbell?
Bruce Campbell, yeah. You know,
like that's a show.
With a man attached, Bruce Campbell.
I own that show on DVD.
I love that,
and
show.
that show's great.
Wasn't Vern Troyer on that show?
Vern Troyer played Napoleon.
Oh my god!
And so what it is there was this syndicated television at the time that Heat Vision and Jack pilot came out. Was really trying to ape on what they had in the 70s as, like, primetime programming. The other show that this made me miss was The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk.
Everybody was talking about how it was supposed to be a spoof on Knight Rider and this and that, and I was just like, nobody's mentioning the Hulk. It's the most hulky Hulk I've ever hulked.
Dude, to the fact that they use a dissonant version of the Lonely Man theme.
And for them going away at the end?
No. Right before he sleeps with Christine Taylor.
Oh, God.
They use, like, a dissonant version of the Lonely Man theme, and that's when I wrote down, I miss the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. No, it very much was. Like him, strolling into town. He's got these horrible powers that came from this terrible place, and he's only trying to do good with them.
It's and he's being hunted mercilessly by a man with a goatee.
Yes. No, it was very hulky. Yeah, man. So it's this crazy little pilot for a show that never got picked up. But we call it this crazy little pilot where, like, other shows going on at the time, just for, like, setting the stage, The Adventures of Hercules, Xena Warrior Princess, right. Earth 2, Sliders, Birds of Prey was 2 years away. Like, had we had Young Hercules yet? That was another big one that got...
Young Hercules. I mean, Jack of all trades. You had all these shows that were, like, as cheesy as what Heat Vision and Jack is.
We also can't ignore that this is the time of Buffy and Angel, right? Like, I mean, and that was their bread and butter, was going back to that, like, schlocky 70s and 80s stuff, but then putting, their 90s spin on it. So, like, yeah, this was the perfect time for a show like this.
But at the same time, it also is coming across as parody. And my big question is, are you familiar with Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
Don't
me.
Yes, I was trying to think of a polite way to answer. I was trying to think of a polite way to say that. Yes.
Okay, so for the future, is not the polite way to answer that.
It was the politest way I could say it in the moment.
You saying, of course, would be fine. People get our dynamic at this point. You don't need to be polite to me.
I love Garth Marenghi's stuff, though. He and Dark Place being the main thing that they did with that character, but he's also got a couple of plays you should check out sometime.
Oh, he's great. He's fantastic. He also shows up, like, a couple of times in the Dean Lerner show, doesn't he? Because he's Dean Lerner's friend.
Yeah.
So I wonder. Okay, first of all, the first question I need answered and we're just going to be building questions because that's what this show makes you do. It makes you question.
It makes you question everything and want to know more.
What did Ben Stiller win an Emmy for?
The Ben Stiller Show.
The Ben Stiller Show was in like one season and canceled.
Well, yeah, but I think it was one of those too smart for TV moves. I mean, that just because it was canceled and after so many episodes doesn't mean that it wasn't recognized as like. I'm pretty sure he won an Emmy for the Ben Stiller Show.
Okay,
I could look that up.
I would like you to look it up. That's the
up.
reason why I posed the question to you was I didn't have a chance to look it up, and I knew you were sitting at home researching today, so I thought maybe you would have done that. But it also seems strange that it's 99. There's all these jokes about George Lucas.
It was the Ben Stiller Show.
The Ben Stiller Show. Did that only run for one season, or am I nuts?
I think it was a little bit longer than that because it was MTV. They didn't really care to cancel shit.
So what show did he have on Fox then? Because I was assumed naturally that the show that Fox canceled was the Ben Stiller Show. Because as far as I knew, that show didn't do well. And then he sort of fell in with the Mr. Show guys to produce that.
Let me
which
find
is why
all
those
of this
two shows are very similar.
It had one full season, 13 episodes. It was on Fox. I thought it was on, but that must have been the one that they canceled.
Yeah.
But yeah, he won an Emmy for the Ben Stiller Show.
The Ben Stiller Show won a posthumous Emmy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly did.
Cool. That's very cool. That's exactly what I wanted to prove. Because I'm like, he didn't. What else would he have won an Emmy for but the Ben Stiller Show? But he starts out by saying, I had a show on Fox and they canceled it, but then I won this bad boy. And it's like, but you won that bad boy for the show that they canceled. Why now, 7 years later, are they letting you direct a show? Yeah. Like, the narrative that he builds feels very merengue.
Oh, it very much is. But it also reminded me of when Futurama came back for the movies. That like 10 minutes that they spend just digging into Fox before at the beginning of is it Bender's Big Score, the first one?
Yeah. Well, there's also like, the whole opening of Family Guy
when
it came back for cancellation, and it's 5 minutes of shows that would have to be canceled before Family Guy came back, and they all got canceled. So my big question then is, would Ben Stiller be a framing device if this show got picked up?
Still?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Because I think now you have a guy like you have a guy like Dan Harmon who is the writer for this thing, and I mean, sneak preview for later on when we're talking about where this thing is actually going. He is the one that also owns the rights to it and like is about to do some stuff with it. So you could almost swap out and like maybe have like a handing off of the torch, as it were, as much as we care about this. Like if Ben Stiller was there for like the first episode, but then from there on out, if there was anything with like Dan Harmon stepping in, I think would work. Because I think now, I don't know if it would work for Ben Stiller now. Whereas for Dan Harmon, it would play perfectly into his whole ethos.
Right. No, but I mean, I'm talking back to the '99.
Oh, if it had gotten picked up then, yeah, I feel like they probably would have gone back to him once or twice, maybe not every episode, maybe for like special episodes, like Christmas episodes, after school specials, like throw it in every now and then. Although maybe they could do the whole R.L. Stein at the end of Goosebumps thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it would work. I think it would work to have Ben Stiller crowing about how great this show is every episode. I think that...
Yeah, but unlike with Garth Marenghi, where like he's kind of interluding and filling in the gaps of like lost pieces of the show and stuff like that, I think it would have been much more like a bookend, like just like a go-to Ben Stiller, like Jerry Stiller's final thoughts type thing, you know?
Well, and that's the thing. Like I look at this show and all I see is
Jerry Stiller.
Jerry Stiller, Ben's father. Actually, it would be great if at the end of every episode you had Jerry Stiller's reaction. This was terrible. You took me off the set of Seinfeld for this.
Oh man!
This is why I'm on Kevin James's show.
Domino's. Oh, it's the worst joke in history told on that show by Jerry Stiller. Where were we?
We were just talking about this show makes you question. So I guess we should give a brief synopsis of what happens in this pilot.
Oh yeah, so you get the gist of the idea. We're focusing on this character called Heat Vision, played by Jack Black, or what is it,
No,
Jake
no, no,
Austin?
no. Jack
Oh no, sorry,
Austin.
that's
Heat
Jack Austin.
Vision is the bike.
Heat Vision is the bike, right? Jack Austin is the
The
I don't even know
astronaut.
how to be, yeah.
First of all, Jake Austin, Jack Austin, no,
Jake Austin
Jack
played by
Austin.
Jack
It's
Black.
Jack Austin
Jack
because it's
Austin.
Heat Vision and Jack.
Oh my God, where are we?
Right.
What are we
So
doing?
it's Jack Austin. So even from the beginning, there's $6 billion man, $6 million
Yes.
man. Sorry, inflation. So there's $6 million man reference because Steve Austin is an astronaut who gets damaged and is rebuilt. So he goes off into space and he suffers an accident where he is too close to the sun, but in space,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
very 70s television.
yeah.
Um,
He flew too close to the sun.
and due to an error, and apparently the human brain is much like cookie dough, so the heat exposure caused it to expand, which I was like, that's stupid. But then I think about when I cook cookies and I put a little ball and then it becomes a cookie.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
Well,
actually a crazy good metaphor.
it's a crazy good metaphor for the kind of parody that they're making, because of course the second you think about it you realize how full of shit it is, but that is exactly the kind of science that you would hear in those shows, right? Knight
It's
Rider,
Star
all that
Trek.
crap.
Let's
Star Trek. But I my favorite part of that moment though is her line right after that, where she's just like, "How high did your rocket ship have to fly to get that baked?"
to have your brain get totally
uh,
baked. Yeah.
uh,
So that's why I imagined that like they would have him tell the story literally every episode
do
because
you think they do different ways or just use the exact same footage every time?
they would know they would be the same footage every time.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is that this is 100% treading on syndicated television,
Right.
and a syndicated television reuses footage all the time. So like in live action syndication, since you can't have a theme song that is five, I mean you could also have a theme song, but like theme songs, the reason why we don't have theme songs now is because theme songs allowed you to have less show.
Yes.
Because like you could play the full version of the Cheers theme song and then like only have 19 minutes of actual show.
Right. Yeah. And we're not saying like the writers were using that as a tool, essentially, when they had to be pumping out 26 episodes and trying to figure out what they were going to do to get as many episodes made so that they could go into syndication. The easiest thing they could do was things like add in a 5-minute theme song. So that was 5 less minutes they had to worry about writing.
Right. Now
Like,
I'm only
yeah.
writing 15 minutes of show.
Right.
So, and I 100% believe that they both origins and exactly the same as in the pilot. And even if the show like drastically changed after, like if it had got picked up and actually had money behind it, I feel like it still would have been that like sort of crummy footage that
Oh,
they
yeah.
put
Well,
in.
I wonder if they did get picked up, if they would have gone to the 40-minute format.
Well,
like
that's
an
the
episode
it
of
is a
Elf or
40-minute
something, right?
format show.
Right.
That's the big thing I was going to ask you, but as I've been sitting here looking for an opening, the pilot itself is 30 minutes long.
Well, that's with the Ben Stiller interlude, right?
Right.
So if we
but the
assume
Ben
that
Stiller
would be there every
interlude is
time.
not the Ben Stiller interlude is not 8 minutes. Right?
No.
So this
Yeah,
was
yeah.
not a half-hour show. It also wasn't 6 minutes, right? Because at the
Right.
time they were flirting around 24 minutes of show, so that you could fill the remaining 6 minutes with commercials.
Right. Right.
I love this episode already. I need everyone to know how much I love this episode. And it is because all of the little esoteric bullshit I know about television, I'm finally getting to share.
Yeah, well, and because that is one of the big things that I think that this does super well, right? We still haven't gotten into like the full plot of it, but what this show does really well is it takes all of that stuff that you're talking about, all of the minutia and all of the subtlety of what television is, and actually like really does a good job of recreating it, of working with it, of actually like making a good version of it. It's a lot like watching it's a lot like watching like Shaun of the Dead or something, right? Where you're like, well, not only is this like a really good like call out on the genre, but on top of that, it's also a really good entry into the genre, right? So that's what's yeah.
I don't mean to be rude, but to compare this to the work of Edgar Wright is kind of a disservice to Edgar Wright.
Are
I
you
mean, it's
kidding
like
me?
proto Edgar Wright. I mean,
Well, right.
the thing is,
I can almost guarantee you that on the spaced commentary that he has Ben Stiller come on for that, they talk about the fact that Ben Stiller is a huge inspiration for a lot of what Edgar Wright does, and I could very easily see this being something that inspires Edgar
that
Wright.
I if I did not know that, but it's like the problem is this stuff, it feels very sketchy.
Yeah,
Meaning, I don't know if this show got picked up if it would have just been Heat Vision and Jack every week, or if it would have been anthology, sort of lost 70s shows.
mm. Yeah, that would be a really weird concept for the 90s. I don't think a Fox specifically would go for something that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because
But
this is long before like we get into that golden age of television where they were just handing out money for things. Like what they wanted a secure, safe bet, and that's a weird bet to make.
I agree. But like watching it from where I am now, that's the way that I could see this working. Because as much as
Okay.
I enjoy this show, well, this is the first time I've ever seen it start to finish. Because the video I had only went to Paragon at the club,
Oh.
and then so I never saw anything after the strip club.
Okay.
So I'm just being honest. Like this is
Yeah.
Um,
It's weird to lose like the last like 3 minutes of that episode.
yeah. So I'd never seen that before today. So thank you for finding a like full and complete. Like I wanted you to know that's why, Sejohn. I need to make sure that I'm seeing the whole thing if I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about it. So it's one of those, but I don't know if I mean, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to it. I am a big fan of the 4-episode test, but
Yeah.
if I were a TV network, I would not pick up this show based on this pilot.
Yeah. 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 No, this is well part okay, so here comes my theory, right?
Okay.
Part of the I don't know. I think that somebody at Fox, realizing that they fucked up real big with letting go of Ben Stiller, found him in a moment where he had to decide if he was going to keep going in the movie route or if he was going to come back to television. Right, at the end of the '90s, when he had to figure out which way he was going to go, I think somebody at Fox did their damnedest to try and get him back, and I think the entire time he took them for a fucking ride. I think this entire thing is an intended pilot as far as Fox was concerned, but as far as Ben Stiller was concerned, this was a big old middle finger to them, and he just did whatever he wanted, didn't care whether or not it got picked up. I
I
think this
will
is
100% support that theory.
yeah, I think that's why it feels so weird where you can't really see where it's going to go because I don't think he had any idea where it was going to go, but I also don't think he necessarily would have said no if Fox turned around and said, "Yes, make more of this." You know what I mean? Like he would have then from there just been like, "All right, fuck it, let's see what we can do." But I think the entire time he's just like wasting Fox's money, which is why you have all of the insanely long animation shots. They're unnecessarily long animation shots. Like when that dude when the final moment in the strip club when they defeat the alien that shows up and they suck it up into the speaker. This is the most ridiculous thing in the world. I'm realizing as I say it. They spend they spend like a minute of footage watching that thing go down the pipe into the speaker, into the wires, back up into the board, into the cassette tape, and then land on a Ben Stiller joke, cameo joke at the end. That was so unnecessary and probably cost them so much money.
You're not wrong, Sejohn.
Yeah, so I just think it's just Ben Stiller just having a good old fucking time with his friends, you know, Jack Black and Owen Wilson and I mean, was Christine Taylor his wife yet at this
Yeah,
point?
Christine Taylor's his wife. Because
Yeah,
what I was
and
going to say is Christine Taylor, sort of the luckiest woman in Hollywood.
yeah.
'Cause-
I think Ben Stiller might feel like he's pretty lucky himself because I mean Christine Taylor's been hilarious since like the Brady Bunch movies.
Well, I was going to go since Hey Dude. Because
Hey,
she was
man.
on Hey Dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's lucky, but it's also the fact that she ties her horse to Ben Stiller. First of all, he doesn't look like Jerry Stiller yet. And they gotta be around the same age. Like where Jerry Stiller came into our lives, right? So I wish I knew Ben Stiller's mom's name right now. I'm super upset that I don't. I know she's in Night at the Museum.
Yeah. Hold on, keep going and I'll look her up.
So Ben Stiller, he kept it tight. Right, let's talk about it. And she got to be at Zoolander, which everybody like around our age loves. Dodgeball. I mean,
Mhm.
she got a heck of a career out of her relationship with Ben Stiller.
Well, and she's one of those actresses that, I mean, first of all, there's a there is a very specific type of actress that comedy requires most of the time for the comedies, at least the last 30 years, right? You need the pretty wife to be there, right? Like that is how you get like the dopey husband jokes. It's they only work if they're up against an attractive, funny woman, right? Smart, funny woman. And so like she's got that. And so like in a sense, yeah, she's lucky that that's the type that she plays, but she is so good at playing that type. Like we cannot like disregard how good she is
And
at playing that type.
that's true. I would never. I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to cheapen it at all. But like, that's one of those moments where it's one of those moments that I'm always kind of searching for. Not
Hmm.
necessarily with a woman, but to find like a collaborator
Yeah,
who so perfectly complements me
yeah, yeah.
that we can create Zoolander and Dodgeball.
I mean, she for me, I first of all, biggest crush in the friggin' world because you like I can't help like she's intelligent and funny and beautiful on top of that, right? But then like seeing her play Marsha Brady in the Brady Bunch movies is no joke. Like saves a lot of those movies, right? Like so a lot of the stuff, if you go back to the Brady Bunch and Very Brady sequel now, so they're very weird and don't necessarily play, but like her as Marsha is just fantastic when she gets the whole like football to the face and everything about those moments is just so good. And then like later on like seeing her in roles like Dodgeball and this and you know she's Zoolander it I love like the her sense of humor and the way that she was able to find how that works with what Ben Stiller does with all of his bits is fantastic. It's funny that I don't think they ever play off of each other as actual like romantic leads.
Well,
They're always
Zoolander. They get married in
yeah, yeah.
Zoolander.
Yes, but I'm thinking about like Dodgeball and is she in Heavyweights or is that a different actress in
That's
Heavyweights?
a different actress in Heavyweights.
Yeah. It's funny to me that I guess it's more of a Ben Stiller thing that he seems to love putting himself in these really weird roles, these really weird not always the greatest looking characters and I mean that in terms of like they
Well,
do shitty weird stuff.
so what I was gonna say is, do you ascribe to the Trinity of Stiller theory,
Oh,
where he has three roles, and that
okay.
is overwhelmed everyman, you're Greg Fokker,
Okay.
sociopath, you're Tony Perkins, Derek Zoolander.
Um, yeah, I mean, in comedy for sure, but I think that he's proven over the last, decade or so that he can step out of those roles to do something different.
I didn't
It's
like him
just
in that one that Noah Baumbach wrote. I can't think.
Greenberg,
What?
Greenberg.
No, not Greenberg.
What was the name of it?
The While We're Young. Oh,
Oh,
that it's
is
something like that. Look it up. Look it up. It came out 2015, the same year that Mistress America came out. It was one
oh
of
God.
those. Charles Grodin is also in it. I don't know. You loved Walter Mitty,
So the
so
Noah Baumbach one that Ben Stiller did is Greenberg.
okay. So that's not the one I was thinking of. What is the one that I'm thinking of?
I have no idea. Hold on, let me look at Ben Stiller.
Look at
But
Ben
yeah,
Stiller on IMDb.
well, I was going to say Greenberg's a great example of him stepping out of that role, or Walter Mitty is another really good example of him
Walter
stepping
Mitty
out.
is Overwhelmed Everyman. It's like a take on Overwhelmed Everyman.
I mean, I guess, but now you're getting down to not Ben Stiller having a type, but that like all Hollywood stories
Oh,
essentially rely on specific types.
there are only 5 types of characters.
But that's that. I mean, that's the kind of territory you're getting into.
I know,
because-
I know. I'm being a jerk.
No, it's not. It's not. It's like, but if you start breaking down the character types like that, but yeah, but that's also every comedy depends on those three character
That's
types.
true.
And it's
No,
the fact that he
every
can play
comedy does not depend on Derek Zoolander.
There are, but no. One of those three.
Yes.
Every comedy depends on one of those three types, and he plays those three types, which makes him super versatile. Whereas there are guys like, let me think, with Scott Pilgrim there. What's his name?
Michael Cera?
Yeah, Michael Cera only really kind of plays one type. He only really does kind of the overwhelmed like teen
Everyman.
type. Yeah, like that's kind of just the only one that he can really pull off because he's tried the other types. What was the French one that he did, the remake that he did where he plays the two people? It's him and then his like evil persona comes out.
Youth in Revolt.
Yeah, Youth in Revolt.
What a terrible fucking movie! How
Yeah,
dare
exactly.
you bring it up in the
But
Heat,
that's my
Sejohn,
point,
and
right? Is
Deck
he tries
episode?
to play out of his niche, and it doesn't necessarily always work out for him. Whereas Ben Stiller can get out of those frameworks for sure.
Well,
Um,
I've never actually been a. I'm sitting here defending it as a person who never believed in the theory. Like
yeah,
someone brought that theory to me, and I'm just like, no, no, because the type of sociopath that he is in Heavyweights is completely different from the type of sociopath that he is in Dodgeball. And those two characters are basically the same character, but the level of deviousness and their motivations are so different.
well, and he plays a really good asshole version of himself that's very sociopathic, both at the beginning of the episode of Heat Vision and Jack. We also see him bring that same thing out in his episode of Extras when he plays himself.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal to watch him like do that. And again, two very different types of versions of himself, but still playing off of that like sociopathic type for sure.
Did you
But
get the
yeah,
name of this movie? Is it
I
While We're
am
Young? It's something like that.
okay.
It's got a white cover.
I'm trying real hard, man, and I'm not Crooked Lines. Maybe no,
No.
wait, that's him as producer. Hold on, I gotta find him as actor.
You
That's
gotta go to
that's
actor.
why.
Oh, so that's why. Oh, I'm looking at his producer credits. I'm not seeing it. I'm so rude to you.
What is the one that you think it is? What is
While
the name
We're
of it?
Young.
While We're Young, he plays Josh.
Okay,
Maybe
who
that's
wrote
another
that?
Noah.
I think that's a
We find
Noah Baumbach one.
It is. It is a
Okay.
Noah.
Okay,
another
so that's the
Noah-
one that I'm thinking of. Because that movie is from a time in my life that I felt the most Seinfeld or Friends, like the most 90s sitcom ever. Because,
Ooh,
what?
it's based on an Ibsen piece.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge thing. But I had spent the morning with like my group of friends,
hmm
and then one of them had to go to work, and another one had another thing they had to do. So I went to this movie, and then we all came back together after our various things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, this is just like TV, where we all went and had our own little plots. And now we're back to summarize them.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's what I think of. And his role, he's really good in that one too. But arguably, the people who ascribe to that theory, which again I do not ascribe to, it's just something that it was when I was working on Slither. One of the guys during that movie brought up the whole Ben Affleck Trinity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. That seems like a stupid thing to say.
But that's what I mean when I say that. Like, I think that what that is people ascribing something to an actor, and I don't think it's the actor. I think that it's actually a much larger picture than that. And it's not that all stories have those types of characters, but that Hollywood prefers those type of characters because you can always find counterexamples to all of those. But the point is that if there's a blockbuster film coming out where you can tell not a lot of thought was put into it, it's gonna be one of those types. It's just gonna be, like that's how those movies work. Which is, for good or for ill, because then you get these guys like we were saying with Ben Stiller, who can come in and just blow the pants off of all of those roles and just does phenomenal at them and makes them memorable.
All right. So now, back to Heat Vision and Jack.
Got
But
it.
it's important to talk about Ben Stiller because arguably he's the reason this happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I don't think anybody else involved carried any real weight with them when it came to this show being made. I think he is the heavyweight.
Ironically, as it were. He's so proud of it, people. And
Yeah.
and look how cool Sejohn is. Me,
Yeah.
I would have like, he's the heavyweight.
So the show it starts off as episode 14 for some reason. I think is a pretty great moment and joke. It's supposed to be like mid series, and you find out all of this backstory stuff as we've been talking about how Jack became super smart but only during the day, and how Heat Vision became a talking motorcycle, and they go around and solve crimes, and they find themselves in this town in which an alien invasion has started to take place. So there's also this weird Doctor Who element, and I say Doctor Who specifically because suddenly in the middle of the show there's a 10-second clip of Doctor Who. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be watching Heat Vision as the machine watching this episode, like learning from it. Like I'm trying to figure out what the joke was.
Well, first of all, Heat Vision was a guy.
Right. Okay. So heat vision was a man once,
So
but
it's not that he has to learn from it. And like, because he still has memories of when he was Jack's unemployed roommate, Doug.
yeah, that's true. He was a man once, so like maybe he wouldn't want to take over humanity. But like we learn later on, like because he's lost a lot of his physicality, there's a lot of things that don't affect him. Like for instance, when that dude tries to stop him from breathing, he can't because first of all, he doesn't
He
have
ain't got no
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah, he ain't got no eyes, and also he doesn't have a body to disintegrate, right? Like it's very weird. It was like a really sad moment too when he turns and he goes, "Yeah, I don't got no eyes." It's like, oh man,
But
he's
that
got a
doesn't
very
make
depressing
sense
story.
because, like, it seems like he can move around. So is he just moving around blind?
Yeah, clearly he can quote unquote see, right? But I think that that is again a question that Ben Stiller never intended to have to answer. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of this stuff is just jokes, just to be funny, with no intention of ever really getting deeper. There's no way that they could get deeper into some of this stuff because it would just the amount of gymnastics that they would have to play, and even to make a joke background that would all of this would truly work in would be insane over a series. It works in 30 minutes or even maybe 2 hours, but I don't know how, short of it being something like Adult Swim where they do just never get deeper. But that wouldn't fly on Fox, right? Like there's no way that that would work for longer than like 6 episodes on Fox.
Right. Even Animation Domination lasted like, not Animation Domination. They're like Adult Swim on
I
Saturdays.
I think it was it not that? Yeah, but it was
It
that weird
was.
one where
It was.
like Major Lazer was part of it and Stone Quackers and all that
Yeah.
shit.
It
Yeah, and they
was
couldn't deal.
ADHD.
ADHD,
Animation
right?
Domination, High Definition.
Yeah,
Like
whatever. Yeah.
stupid.
Yep,
Fox
really.
is stupid. You have
Well,
The
his
Simpsons, and you need to understand that, like, one day you're not going to have The Simpsons anymore.
well, I think they do, and I think that's why they try this stuff, right? Well, and it's funny that you say that, right? Like Fox has been trying for years to try and figure out like what kind of network they can be to stand out against the likes of a CBS or an ABC or an NBC. Like they've always tried to make themselves different, and clearly, like with projects like this, have like tried to spread their wings. I don't know. Do you think that they could come back to this show now, or do you think it would have to go somewhere else?
I think that this would be terrible on Fox. I
Yeah,
can't think of I can't think of anywhere where this would actually work. I
yeah.
would not want this show to come back. I do not like this show. I mean, like, and I hate to be that person who says that, but it's like that's just a true statement that this show, as it is, here's what I would like to watch, right? Because I think about this show and I think about like other 70s esque show parodies that I've seen,
Right.
and one that I always think of is in American Dad, Johnny Mind, who had his arms and limbs blown
The
inward.
quadriplegic.
Yeah, Mind
Yeah.
Quad.
Mind Quad.
Like I would watch the shit out of Mind Quad. And there have been like 2 Mind Quad jokes, and that's it in the whole of
I,
American Dad.
I
But
think
like,
Wheels of the Leg Man would be a pretty good one too.
yeah, exactly. Yes, you're not wrong, right? But like but those are 2 things where like they're clearly send ups of 70s. Well, Mind Quad is definitely a 70s esque show,
Yes.
like
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
Incredible Hulk. Wheels and Leg Man is in the 80s.
More of a late 80s,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Simon and Simon, Heart and Heart,
Well, yeah, and like any of those detective ones, like
Moonlighting,
Miami Heat stuff. Yeah.
Jake and the Fat Man.
Hmm.
Look at us naming all these shows. So, like those are like just little throwaway things where,
Yeah.
but they're throwaway things that, if what you're saying is true, and honestly, I don't doubt it. I feel like Ben Stiller did make a choice. Like, I'm going to be a movie star. You had your fucking chance,
But sure, I'll play.
but you're gonna pay for it. Yeah, I'll make a movie,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'll take all these guys. Like the crazy thing is, like this might have hurt Dan Harmon in a lot of ways. Like we know it now because Dan Harmon became popular, and that's what happens when somebody becomes popular. Sort of like what happened with Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared once the 40-Year-Old Virgin hit and Judd Apatow became a household name.
Right.
Where like people were going back and like, Freaks and Geeks, I love this show. And it's like, did you love this show? Because I feel like one person besides me watched this show growing up.
Oh man.
Like, because I was in a Florida high school for a band performance, and this kid Pete goes, "Man, this is a cafeteria like a Freaks and Geeks," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is," and nobody knew what we were talking about at all.
And then your eyes met across the room.
No, that never occurred. But it was just one of those things where it's like everybody acts like they were always in on the Freaks and Geeks thing. But I remember when I bought it on DVD, like I was the person who introduced it to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Who had never seen it before. And then they claimed to be like, "Oh, I'm a fan from way back." And I'm like, "Bitch, you watched it in my fucking house."
And there goes Devin's hipster minute.
Way back to when the DVDs came out.
I had that shit on VHS. I had to write my labels, goddammit.
That's Maximum Bob for me. Remember Maximum Bob had a TV show adaptation?
God. Jeez.
First of all,
wow.
I love the book Maximum Bob. Second of all, God, the 90s were just a fucking weird place for television shows. Which is why you look at something like Heat Vision and Jack, I'm bringing it back, and question if it was meant to be serious or not.
Yeah.
Because
I do honestly believe that Fox wanted a show, and I think that Ben Stiller in his moment before he took off was just like, yeah, here you go, and just like kind of threw this on their desk and was just like, take that, suckers, and then walked out the door and never have to look back. But I think that it has potential to work now. I do.
I think I would rather see a show in the vein of the 70s Traveling Man.
Yeah.
Created. Like one of the notes I wrote is the world is ripe for a show like this.
Oh yeah,
we should write that show.
That would be fantastic.
Because
like there's got to be like a weird. He's got to have a weird hook, right? Like there's got to be a reason he's on the run. There's got to be, what is this? What are we looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Like so we need to find a reason that he's on the run. And then just him going and helping people.
Well, and he has to have something that other people don't have that makes him like uniquely able to help. Not that it necessarily has to fit the situation. It just has to be something that makes him different. Because one of the best things about all of these is that it never quite depended on their powers to save the day. It was just always like their powers were just like a convenient way to do it.
That's very true. Like MacGyver. like MacGyver in a lot of ways is that transcended to be more than.
Right.
But like, really, he's just kind of handy.
Like, really, his powers aren't anything too special, and it's not like every situation required his ability to like put shit together. It just was helpful that he could.
Man, it's super. Like, this would have taken us 3 hours to drain this basement, but you put a straw in a fan, and it's already done.
It's gone. You did it in 30 minutes instead of the 3 hours. Like, you saved us time. Thank you, MacGyver.
That was convenient. Now we'll get to our son's soccer game.
I was gonna drink. All right.
So yeah, it's just one of those things where I would like it. And then I'm like, well, we're podcasters, right? So we should write what we know. So the man who's traveling should also be recording a podcast
while he's doing it, while he's on the run.
And then he has like. He like anonymously uploads it from like internet cafes and libraries.
That's amazing. I love this. I love this idea. We got to stop talking about it now, or we need to mail it to ourselves.
I'm pretty sure this is us mailing it to ourselves. That's why I was okay talking with it on the phone, because it's you and I, right, trademarking it. The Say Report.
There we go.
Like that's the thing. So he goes out and he like, you ever wonder this? Da, da, da. So like he has a driver. So like that's the thing. And so he goes out and he's able to purchase supplies and stuff from him. Really, it's sort of Blade-esque.
Nice.
But they record in the back of the van that they live in.
So it's like one part Blade, one part like driving this Daisy.
A little bit, yeah, except without the racial overtones.
Well, no. We haven't read
Well,
this
it's
yet,
a 70s show, so.
Oh, man. Yeah. I think this show has potential in two forms specifically. I think either way, I think it has to be an animated thing, because I think that's the only way that you would get away with some of the ludicrous stuff nowadays. I don't think anybody would give them the budget to do the kind of like stuff that they did because oddly enough, if you want it to look cheap but good, it's actually really expensive. Like as much as like it was a joke of how cheap the animation and stuff looked, that actual type of animation, the like drawing on movie cell animation that they used, is some of the most expensive ways to do that kind of effect. And so like I don't think that they could get away with a lot of that stuff live action. Secondly, I think you get a lot more people involved voice cast wise that would be willing to do it that necessarily wouldn't be able to dedicate, weeks or months of their time to do walk on roles.
Yeah, I think
right?
it's the only way you have Ron Silver as the bad guy still.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of joke would play great still in animation, right? I mean, so something like the Venture Brothers, or something like, or Rick and Morty is a really good example, right? And Dan Harmon is the guy that, as I said earlier, that has the rights to this stuff, and it is something that he's actually considering. He is looking at animation as a possible way to go, but he does want to bring the show back. It's something that he is, he's starting to get a lot like Guillermo del Toro. Like there'll be 1,000 things thrown on his plate, and we'll be lucky to see if 2 of them ever come to fruition in our lifetime. So I'm just, I'm fingers crossed this is something that he tries to go, because the other way that I think he could go, and he's got connections this way too, is I think if he went through the YouTube Red stuff, or the YouTube Premium now. Red, I forgot Red doesn't exist anymore, it's just Premium.
Why'd they give it Red? I like the term Red.
I think because Premium sounds better on paper. I don't know. It's always
like Devin Decker was the only one who liked this.
You know what? I think it was probably because all of the associations, they were already having issues with RedTube and YouTube, and then calling themselves YouTube Red was like just asking for trouble, I bet.
You're probably right, actually.
That's honestly, and anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, go do your own research. Because I'm honestly not joking, and I don't want to get into that. But I think that I've been watching a ton of premium stuff lately, because with my Google Fi account, we've actually got our YouTube Premium just tied up all up in that. So I didn't know that. And so I've been spending the last couple of weeks actually digging into some stuff, including things like Dallas and Robo. Do you know anything about Dallas and Robo?
Nope.
It is not exactly this. So I think I think that Heat Vision and Jack could stand on its own against Dallas and Robo, but it's actually this really awesome little cartoon in the vein of something like Archer, but it is John Cena and Kat Dennings, and Robo, John Cena, is this giant robot, and Kat Dennings is this space trucker, and they hang out together, and they're just space truckers together. But it's a la, like I said, like an Archer. So like the space trucking is just like the thing they all have in common, but there's a bunch of stories told around that, and it's a good little show. Like I don't think it would survive off of the YouTube stuff, but I think that YouTube was really smart in picking something like it up. And I think that if they had the opportunity for a Dan Harmon show to come to them, an animated Dan Harmon show in something like Heat Vision and Jack, I think that it would do really well for them.
The problem is all right. The way that this show could work for me is if it adopted the Adult Swim 11-minute episode thing. Because I think one of the big issues that I have with this show is that there's clever stuff, but there's so much dead air between the clever moments.
Yeah, for sure.
So if it were condensed into 11 minutes, I'd be all about it. But along that same line, I would really want it to be live action, because I don't want Dan Harmon to not do live action anymore.
Oh yeah,
does that make sense?
For sure. Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, everybody talks about him with Rick and Morty, and I understand why, but really that's Justin Roiland's baby. Dan Harmon just kind of bankrolls it. And I don't want to be like rude about that, but I mean, there are Dan Harmon characters that he voices, but you can tell that it's Justin Roiland, especially when you look at like the Doc and Marty stuff from before.
Yes.
Like it's very clearly his baby, and he found a fantastic backer in Dan Harmon.
Well, and I think if you look a lot of like Dan Harmon's work, coming in to refine other people's like hidden gems is very much his thing. And so I think you're right. I think Justin Roiland kind of really has something, and it's Harmon's responsibility to kind of harness it and like put a leash on it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I mean, this show, we have not talked about what happens in this episode. So now you watch me 2-minute synopsis. Heat Vision and Jack. Jack is a spaceman. He has a giant brain when the sun is up. He's 3 times smarter than any other man. Heat Vision was his unemployed roommate, Doug. He was shot by Ron Silver, and it fused him into the bike Heat Vision. We open on a diner. There's a crazy alien signal, and it comes in. And Frank, the grill cook, touches it with his spatula because I guess that's what you do when your radio's making terrible noise. And that translates. He like beats his radio with a spatula, so he becomes an evil alien. It takes over his body. So then he is confronted by the lady who is working there, the waitress, and he's like, I need a name. You can call me Paragon. And then he pushes her into a jukebox, and Semi-Charmed Kind of Life, reminding you that it's the 90s, starts playing, but just the doot-doot-doot-doot-doot-doos. And he shoots her with green eye lasers. Meanwhile, Heat Vision and Jack, they're on the road, and Heat Vision needs fuel because, you know, he needs food. Just like cars need fuel too.
Right.
It makes sense. So Jack stops at this diner saying, we can both fuel up. How about some premium? And they walk in, and it's a fucking bloody massacre, but it's only the blood of tomatoes.
So Paragon
wrote his name everywhere. So they're examining this. Sheriff, played by Christine Taylor, shows up. She has some banter, and then she arrests Jack because he's not smart because it's nighttime. So he's like, once the sun comes up, I'm going to be smart enough. No cell will be able to hold me. So he breaks out in the daytime. Ron Silver shows up, and he's like, I need to take him back because we need to remove his brain, which doesn't make any fucking sense that they would want to remove his brain. That's the most 70s thing about this show, is that why would you remove his brain? Why would you not harness it inside of this person? No, we need to remove it and study it. Why? He's 3 times smarter than another person. Give him a fucking penthouse apartment.
I don't want to fill in the plot holes, but like for me, I thought it was just the idea that like they would have gladly worked with him, but he chose not to by running away. So they've decided
he only wanted to run away once they told him we're going to remove your brain.
Right.
So that's the thing, because they need a reason for him to be on the run. So they go. Paragon is killing women because he's the very first incel. And they've all chosen to deny him pleasure, so he will drain all of the water from their bodies. They wound up at a strip club called the Sunken Pleasure, and using Star Trek logic are able to turn him back into just radio waves.
Like air coming out of a balloon.
Exactly, like air coming out of a balloon. That was longer than 2 minutes, but that's basically it. There's also a really great moment where they go to Christine Taylor's grandmother's house.
Yes.
And it's fine because she'll be on tour till April, and that joke just sits there. Like, that's just a setup. There's no punchline. It's just, she'll be on tour till April.
Oh, God.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's
also Jack Black bones down with Christine Taylor's sheriff character.
And you forgot the best part of all.
I forgot the best part of all.
The like choreographed German Shepherd dance that happens when he escapes. Oh man!
You know what? I chose specifically to avoid talking about that part because I know how friggin' triggered you can get when you talk about animal abuse. And Christine Taylor with says I barely feed this dog.
Yeah.
This dog is starving. You break out of that cell, this dog's gonna eat you.
And then he is able to train it by various whistles and words. Why did he have to? Never mind. We don't have to. That's a detail we don't have to get into.
Dude, and also, he's like, they're known for their obedience. Whistle, whistle, whistle. Apparently, this dog was trained before it came to this jail. And because he's 3 times smarter than the smartest man in the world, which is just the funniest way to describe it, he knows exactly how the dog was trained.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I look forward to seeing if anything ever happens with this show. But if not, I also will bask in the glory of what it is.
And here's the thing. Even though I am staunchly on record as not being a fan of Heat Vision and Jack, unapologetically will I say that it is not something that I enjoy. If it came back, I would check it out. Because it checks enough of the boxes for me, because I love the 70s mysterious stranger shows. That is bread and butter for me.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the talking vehicle thing, especially a motorcycle. So his biggest weakness is if he gets knocked over. Yeah. He knocked me over. Also doorknobs.
They didn't address that. Somehow he just comes in the house earlier.
I know, right? But there's this thing where he's like, you can break me out here. And he's like, no, I can't, doorknobs. But then he opens up the door to the house.
This is
There's
real nice. Oh, this is great.
your grandmother must be
Your
rich.
grandmother was rich.
Not also not a punchline. Just another thing that sits there. Like that
Uh,
was a funny line, kinda.
what is her name in the show? I just keep calling her Christine Taylor, but what was the
I just
character's
keep
name?
calling her Christine Taylor.
I wonder if like her
Sheriff,
character name was Sheriff.
because he all he refers to her as his sheriff.
You're not wrong. Characterless. She is only as the sheriff.
Maybe that's her name though, like how you name a kid Doctor when you want him to be an astronaut.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I mean, it's fun, and I will definitely say watch it. The problem is, it's so busy checking off boxes that, much like Sorry to Bother You, because someone asked me if I liked it, it gets caught up in its own metaphor and its own cleverness.
Yeah.
Like this show, Heat Vision and Jack, is about the joke first, and that is not how you sell a pilot.
No, I agree. I do, but again, I stand by the fact that I don't think it was ever meant to be a pilot. I think it's just supposed to be a joke. I think at some point it ended up getting included in the Tropic Thunder special edition stuff. I think it was thrown in there as Jack Black's characters, like part of his old resume or something.
Jeff Portnoy.
Yeah. I think it. I think there's somewhere in like what's the mockumentary they made about Tropic Thunder?
I don't remember, unfortunately. It's
Like yeah, it's like Thunder in the Rain or some nonsense like that. They did some a la
all
Apocalypse
Heart
Now.
of Darkness, yeah.
Yeah, Heart of Darkness for Apocalypse Now. They did that, and I think in there, I think they show a clip of it and talk about it as Jeff Portnoy's like jumping off as an actor. So like I feel like that was always the setup, right? It was like at some point down the line, there's going to be a punchline to this entire show that we just haven't gotten yet, and I think that that's part of the joke. I think so. Like I just love it for what it is because I'm pretty sure it's just a big old middle finger to Fox.
And I will agree with that. I will go on record as agreeing with Sejohn on that. I have no qualms agreeing to Sejohn's theory there. You know what makes this movie makes me sad? This show makes me sad. And it only makes me sad because, like, very clearly Ben Stiller had his buddies that he did stuff with.
Sure.
And, I mean, like, it speaks to their ability and the quality of their work that they didn't become Adam Sandler and his buddies. But I don't want to cheapen, like, I love David Spade. I think that David Spade is a hell of an actor. I like Kevin James on TV. I don't really see him as a movie star.
Yeah.
But you see those movies that are like all these guys just hanging out, and it's like, it's fun, and I'm glad that you guys are having fun, but like I would kind of be all right going to the alternate universe where all of those movies were Ben Stiller and the Wilson brothers and Jack Black and Christine Taylor.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's all a matter of like where the comedy came from. You know, I think Ben Stiller has always going back to the Ben Stiller show and Janine Garofalo was on that with him, right? Like, and they did a whole bunch of stuff together.
I mean,
Steal This
Men.
Book and stuff.
Yeah,
Mystery Men. I think that they've always. I think he has always had a really good handle on timeless comedy, not comedy that ages well. Is what I'm trying to say. And I think that is a big difference between him and Adam Sandler. Is I think the kind of comedy that Sandler always did was never going to age well, was great in the moment, but like everything that Saturday Night Live has done in the last 20 years just never really works a week later, you know? And so I think that's what you're talking. I think that's the difference between the two groups is that they have a wittiness to what they do that makes it timeless.
Then before we give our Twitter information, I'm going to posit a theory based upon what we discussed last time capsule episode, you mud whistle, regarding Shallow Hal.
Yeah.
And what I feel is the worst movie that Ben Stiller has ever been a part of.
Okay.
Heartbreak Kid.
I think he would agree.
I think he would too. But using the Sejohn theory of thermodynamics, I wonder if he did that movie knowing it would be his way to say goodbye to the Coen brothers. Not the Coen brothers, fuck me. The Farrelly brothers.
The Farrelly brothers. I don't know, man. I mean, like
it feels like now that I'm contextualizing it against Heat Vision and Jack being this huge fuck you to Fox, I could almost believe in Heartbreak Kid being his huge fuck you to the Farrellys.
I don't know though, because I think the way that he parted ways with Fox is very different than the way that he parted ways with the Farrelly brothers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I think that not working with the Farrelly brothers anymore and realizing he has to kind of grow out of them, I think is a much more amicable split, shall we say, than him and Fox. I think what it might be is him proving a point to them. Maybe I'd be willing to believe that, him showing up and being like, "Look, guys, I don't think this is going to work, but we'll do it." Like, and just know that I knew all along, because you can tell the entire time you were watching him in that movie, he knows none of it is working, and that is one of the most heartbreaking things about watching The Heartbreak Kid.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying that, like, so if this is evidence of his ability to be doing something knowing full well what the outcome is going to be, I wonder if a little bit of that same, foresight went into that movie. And you're not wrong.
He's a smart guy. Yeah. He knows what works. He knows what doesn't. But he also knows when he still has to kind of do the thing that's not going to work for his career, for whatever reason. He knows when he has to kind of do these things. But he always bounces back.
He does. He always does. What does he have coming out now?
Ben Stiller. That'll be you. Do your going away while.
Okay, so while Sejohn is looking up a thing that he should have still had up on his screen,
I do. I have it right here. I just got to click on the damn button.
If you want to yell at me for anything that I've said in this episode, or if you want to talk more like super idiosyncratic television knowledge, hit me up on Twitter at Devin D. Decker.
And if you want to hit me up at Siege versus the World, and we could talk about we can talk about the fact that Dodgeball 2 is the thing at the top of his list. It's only announced. It's not something that it says he's actually working on, and it says that he's producing. I don't know if that means he's acting. But the big thing is he's been doing a lot of Arrested Development stuff, the Tony Wonder. Yeah. I guess he came back for the 2018 season. So he was all involved up in that. He just did the Meyerowitz stories. It's hold on, let me pull that one up. It's like an artsy one that he just did.
Because the last one that I can think of, and I only know it, is
it's a new Noah Baumbach. Okay, that's what it is.
Because Brad's Status is the last one that I can think of, and I was real bummed I didn't get to see that in theaters.
Yeah. But it's a New York anthology series that Noah Baumbach wrote, and him, Adam Sandler, funny enough, are in it. Dustin Hoffman.
That sounds amazing. I mean, I'm a big Baumbach fan. Maybe we'll explore that in another time capsule episode. But until then, I've been Devin Decker as Deck Austin.
Which one am I? Wait.
Well, okay. Wait. I've been Devin Decker as Deck Austin.
The sun's gone down.
Oh, no!
I'm sorry, Devin. The sun's gone down.
Okay, and over there's been the Sejohn Sarawik providing Heat Sejohn. And now, let's throw it to our very own Ron Silver, Will.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Sejohn Sarawik. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so it's delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.